Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, you are welcome, and to my returning subscribers, thank you so much. So in this video, we'll be making this beautiful dress you are seeing right now. So if you are ready, let's get into the video. So this is the material I will be working with for this project, and this is a crepe material, and I have exactly 1.5 yard for this my crepe material. And for the black design on the dress, I'll be making use of this my old dress. I'll be making use of this black dress. And if you have 1.5 yard of like fresh material, it will be very enough. But for this tutorial, I'll be making use of this old black dress that I have. I already folded my fabric into two, and I'll go ahead as well to fold it again, making it 4. So I folded my fabric into 4, and I'll go ahead now to take my measurements. I'll start by drawing out my starting line. So after that, I'll go ahead now to draw out my body measurements. From my starting line, I'll mark my bust points, and mine is 10 inches. So I'll go ahead now to mark my 10 inches for my bust line. So from that my bust point, from that my 10 inches, I'll go up by 2 inches, and these 2 inches will serve as my chest line. So after marking my chest line, I will place my tape at the starting line, and I will take my waistline. So go ahead now and take your waistline. Mine is 15, so I've gone ahead to take 15. And from my waistline, I will bring my tape and place it on my waistline. And from that my waistline, I will get my hip measurements. So if you can do it like from your shoulder down to your hip, is still okay. But I will be taking my tape and I'll be placing it on my waist to get my hip measurements. And my hip measurement is 8 inches. Like from my waist to my hip measurement is 8 inches. After that, I'll go ahead now to take my full length, and the full length for this dress is 35 inches, and I added extra 1 inch, which is 36 inches. And the extra 1 inch that I added is for the hemming parts. So let me go over the lines again. I have my starting line, my chest line, and my bust line, and I have my waistline, I have my hip line, and I have my full length. So I'll go ahead now to connect my lines. After I'm done connecting my lines, I'll go ahead now to take my neck measurements, and for the width of my neck, I'm taking 3 inches, and for the length, I'm taking 1.5 inch. So after marking out my measurements, I'll go ahead now to connect it like so. After that, I'll go ahead now to take my shoulder measurements, and my shoulder measurement is 7.5. So I'll go ahead now to mark it like so. And from my shoulder measurements, I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'll connect it back to my neckline in a slanted way like this. And this is what our shoulder slope is looking like. So next, we'll be taking our armhole measurements. I'm so sorry, at this point I didn't know that my camera did not capture this, but I will explain what I did here. So from the shoulder measurement that we took, that's 7.5 that we took, I'm going to connect it down to my chest line. So after that, we are going to come down to our shoulder slope, and we're going to place our tape and take it down to our chest line. And whatever you have, divide it into 2 and mark your midpoint. And at that midpoint area, we are going to come in by 1/2 inch and mark it like so. So after that, we are going to take our bust measurement, and we'll be taking it at our chest line. And we are simply going to transfer what we have at the chest line to our bust line. So for my bust, I have 9 inches. So go ahead now and impute your own measurements. So because this dress is kind of loose, like it's a free dress, I'm going to impute 10 inches instead of 9 inches. So I'm adding extra 1 inch at my bust area. So I'll go ahead now to connect these 3 dots. So after connecting my lines, this is what I have. So now I'll go ahead now to bring down what I have at my chest line down to my bust line. So after that, I'll go ahead now to take my waist measurements, and I have 7.5 for my waist measurements, and I'll be adding extra 1 inch. So after taking my waist measurements, the next is my hips. So I'll be dividing my hips into 4, and I'll go ahead to mark what I have and add extra 1 inch. So what I have at this hip area is what I'll be marking at the full length, and I'll be adding extra 1 inch because of the A-line effect that this gown is giving at the down part. So I'll be adding 1 inch to create that A-line effect. I'm placing my camera in this direction so you can understand very well what I am doing. So what I have at my hip area, I'm transferring it down to my full length plus extra 1 inch. After marking my measurements, I'll go ahead now to connect my lines. So after cutting it out, this is what I have. I'll go ahead now to remove my front from my back, and I'll cut out my front part. So for the front part, you know that it has this black design going on. So I'm going ahead to mark out 3 inches, and I'll mark it all the way down, and I will as well connect my lines. Remember that is 3 inches that we took for the neck width. So we are going to connect that same 3 inches down to the full length, and I'm going to cut it out like so. So for the sleeve, I'll be making use of pattern paper because honestly I am managing my material, so I'll be making use of my pattern paper. I have gone ahead to mark out my starting line, and I will take one of the pieces of my fabric, like the back. I'll be taking the back to measure out my armhole, and this is one of the easiest way I do my sleeves. So after measuring out what I have on my fabric, I will go ahead now to trace it out on my pattern paper, and I'll be placing my tape in a slanting way like this. Like I will not be placing it straight, I'll be placing it in a slanty form, and I'll mark out what I have traced out on my fabric. And I added extra 1 inch, so go ahead, trace out what you have on your armhole area and add extra 1 inch, and you are good to go. So after marking out your measurements and your extra 1 inch, we are going to connect it. You're going to start from that starting line. You're going to start from the starting line and connect it down to your measurements, what you marked out for your armhole. Please just look at the way I connected I didn't connect it like very straight. I curved it a little to meet with the lines we have already marked out. I'll go ahead now to take my full length for this sleeve. The full length I'm going with is 26 inches, so I'll go ahead now to mark mine. And after that, we are going to mark it down to your full length, and when marking this down to your full length, you are going to also mark it out in a slanty way. You know the normal way of cutting out your A-line, that is exactly how you're going to be cutting out this sleeve. You're not going to be cutting it straight, you're going to be cutting it in a very slanty way. So at the down part of this our sleeve, we are going to be curving it a little so that we'll not be having a sharp end. So I'm going to curve it like so, and I'll be curving it as well on the other end. So after that, I'll place it on my fabric and cut it out. I'm done cutting out my 2 sleeves, so I'll go ahead now to give it a notch at this upper part. I'll go ahead now to bring my back piece and my front piece and join it at the shoulder like so, and I'll be joining it with 1/2 inch. I'm done joining the shoulders, and this is how it's looking like right now. So I'll go ahead now to place my sleeves. So for the sleeve, I'll be placing the notched area front facing front to my shoulder parts, and I'll be placing it like so, and I'll be using my pin to secure it down. After securing it down, go ahead now to stitch it, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side of your sleeve. After stitching it down, this is what I have for my sleeve, and I'll go ahead now to fold it like so, and I'll be placing it armpit to armpit, and I will stitch it down. Notice that we have excess fabric at this part, but we are going to be cutting it out. It is always better to have excess than to run short of fabric. So after I'm done stitching it down, I'll go ahead to trim off the excess. So for this part, I'm going to cut out my loop that I'm going to be using for the belt. So for the belt, I'm cutting 2 inches on fold, and later I'll be dividing it into 2 like so. So I have 2 of these for the both sides of my waist. So I'll go ahead now to fold it the normal way of folding our belts. If you don't know how to go about this, just look at what I am doing and do exactly what I did. So after folding it, you're going to sew it down. I am done folding mine, and I have also gone ahead to give it a good press. So this is how we will be placing the belt. I'll be placing it in between the front and the back of my fabric. So I'll be placing my belt, leaving the longer parts inside, and I'll be bringing out the one that I'll be sewing, and I will stitch it down. I hope you understand this. Just go ahead and stitch it all the way down. So for our neck design, we'll be cutting out that extra 3 inches that we cut off from our fabric, and we'll be adding extra ½ inch for the sewing allowance, making it 3.5 inches. So we are cutting out 3.5 inches for this. So I'm done cutting mine, but I'll be joining because my fabric was not long enough. So after that, when you open it up, you'll be having 7 inches. So I have my 7 inches already. So I'm done joining mine, and this is what I have. I went as well to top stitch so that it will lay down flat. So I'm going ahead now to give it a good press. So this is what our dress is looking like right now. So I have added my belts and my sleeves as well. So I'll go ahead now to measure what I have so as to cut out my neck design. I'm going to be measuring my dress like so, and that will enable me to know the exact length that I'll be cutting out for my center front design. So I have 83 inches for my neck design. So I'll be cutting out 83 inches length on this black fabric. So I've gone ahead to iron my fabric like so, and this line that I have here is going to help me to sew a straight line for this design. So go ahead and iron yours. So after that, we are going to open it up and fold it in this direction. I'll go ahead now to mark out the neck depth that I'll be working with, and the neck depth I'll be working with on this project is 12 inches. So it depends on what you want. If you want it to come up, you can use 11 to 10 inches, and if you want it to come down, you can also come down with 13 inches or 14 inches, but I'm making use of 12 inches for my own neck depth. So from that your 12 inches, from my 12 inches, I'm going to sew it down on the center line. After sewing it down, we are going to open it up like so. Just carefully look at what I'm doing and you will get yours right. I'll be picking up my fabric and I'll be turning it to the right side. And this is what I have. I'm going to repeat it again so you will understand it better. I will carefully lift my fabric like from the 2 sides. I'll pick the 2 sides and I will turn it to the front side. It's simple. So this is what we have for our front design. I'll go ahead now to bring my dress, and I'll be notching the center point of this dress, and as well I will also notch the center point of my front design. I'll be placing my dress and my design front side facing front, and I'll pin it down like so. After pinning it down, I'll go ahead now to sew it. We have almost come to the end of this tutorial, so if you have not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead now to subscribe and like this video, and also leave a comment in the comment section. I'm done pinning it down, so I'll go ahead now to stitch it down, and I'll come back to show you guys what I have. So I'm done stitching, and I have gone ahead as well to stitch down my part, and this is what I have. So if you have stayed up to this point, I want to say a very big thank you to you. Thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe to my channel for more amazing videos, and of course I will see you again in my next video. Bye.